We thought we'd roll out a once-in-a-lifetime business opportunity. Music.
Inter.
Worldwide.
Inter.
Worldwide.
Ciao ragazzi, Bruno here from Inter Worldwide, and today we are bringing you another podcast, and I am joined by a very special guest, Vince Cortali, who will be talking to us about Lazio. How are you, Vince?
Oh, I'm sensational. I'm just waiting for the season to start. It's been so long, and it doesn't even matter that it's starting with Juventus. Every day is just good now. We just can't wait. Biding time.
Yeah,
How you going,
I
Bruno?
think I'm good, thank you. I'm good, thank you. And I think we're all in the same boat. Just really excited. We've got the Coppa Italia fixtures coming up this weekend coming, and then the following week we have the catch-up games, and then your beloved Lazio is in action against Atalanta. But we'll start with a couple of questions in regards to the team itself. So we'll get straight into it. Just firstly, coronavirus has taken the world by storm. You know, in the space of 2-3 weeks, we saw the shutdown of the Italian league, followed by every other European league in general, and each club is impacted differently. So really, we just want to talk about how, you know, you think Lazio's come out after it and what you see from them. So by stopping the season where they were, and you've probably touched on the topic how Lazio were on a great unbeaten streak. How do you think they're going to return? They're, like I mentioned earlier, their first fixtures against Atalanta. How do you think you guys are going to return, especially being only 1 point behind Juventus?
I think all the foreign players stayed in Italy. They all stayed in Italy. I think that they're super pumped. They've never been in a situation where they're challenging for the league, and mentally, I think that's all they've probably been focusing on more than any other season. If they were down in sixth, seventh place, I don't think they'd have that motivation to really, get back out there and, but the desire would be there just from that one point. And because we beat Juventus twice, league and Super Cup, I think that they'll believe that they are a strong chance of competing in the league. So I think that they would probably return. Probably, I guess like an Atalanta fired up. They're still in the cop. They're still in the Champions League, and they're smaller clubs. And I reckon a lot of those players would be really fired up, ready to go. And I mean, the coronavirus has really affected everybody. But I think that just with them staying all together, everyone stayed in Italy. I think Lazio would probably be the same, if not better, I guess, than majority of the teams.
Yeah, no, that's a good point you raised. The players staying in Italy, it just makes it that much easier coming back to training and everything. You saw when this first started, Ronaldo went to Portugal and he took refuge there. So, firstly, he had to get back into the country. Then he had to isolate and everything. So, I think, yeah, that point you touched on with the players staying in Italy is probably a really good point. And I didn't actually look at it that way. But yeah, and like you said, there's a lot to fight for this season. If this happened, last season or the season before, where Juventus were way ahead, I don't think many teams would come back with great motivation, especially the Atalantas, the Inters, the Lazios, who were just mid-table, not fighting for much. There's no motivation to keep going. But next question, I know your views on this, and I want you to tell the community your views on this. Should the season have restarted following the sudden stoppage? And why do you think that?
100% the season should be restarted. Just because if they finish the season because of and it happens again, then it'll just be a constant thing where we might not have a champion for years. So I think everyone's already, in motion. The team's together. Let's give it another go. And then if we try it and it doesn't work, then maybe a quick playoff, or maybe just whoever's on top gets it. But I think it's very important because we do have the European Cup coming up, so it's better not to add more teams to Serie A and congest it with extra games when it's probably going to be a shorter time already. So I think just finishing this season, I think, yes, 100%. Everybody wants to see someone win on the field. And, there's players out there that are playing their last game for their clubs and moving on. And, even with Conte, he's got a brand new team. He'd love to see more out of Sanchez before he makes a commitment or not. I don't think they're going to keep him, but just that little bit extra, you know what I mean? Like if they end it now, a lot of people still won't have probably the answers on some young players, even young players like Tonali. Is he the real deal? Just give him. Let's see how he finishes off the season with their fight for relegation. So I think all these things are important. If you keep on stopping seasons, you're going to miss out on player potential, as well as the whole ups and downs of being a soccer fan. If you keep on stopping, then that passion's going to die. So I'm 100%. I think it has to finish, and I can't wait.
Yeah, definitely. And I was a bit hesitant to begin with restarting the season, but like you said, you need to. And you mentioned in one of our previous discussions, you mentioned that this is going to set a precedent. We've had wars where games weren't stopped and stuff like that, but it's a pandemic. It's going to set a precedent. If they just stop the season now, that's what will happen in future times. So. No, you bring a very valid point there. So, question here, and I know you know the answer, and it's not going to probably be. It's going to be probably a quick one to go through, but they've done a couple of rounds of testing on players in regards to COVID-19. I know Inter's come up all clear, and so have anyone tested positive in the Lazio team, and how do you think they should go about taking testing once the season does start and resume? So in Australia, we've got rugby league where they'll check the temperatures of all the players before a game, and if they've got a high temperature, they're not allowed to play. Is this something that should be implemented into the Serie A, or do you think just go on with it?
Yeah, I think that it's a lot of the rest of the world get away with all this stuff, and they've been pretty hard on professional sports, and they should be, because everyone has family members at home. So I think that anything to protect family members and players is welcome. I don't believe that Lazio have any positives test. I think everyone's been clean so far, which is really good. I did hear a story today, unrelated to Lazio, that I think it was Benevento came out saying that some teams in Serie A are hiding positive tests to stop the season from starting again because they want to stay in Serie A. So that's something that we just hope doesn't happen. But Lazio's clean right now. Lazio have a big training ground facilities, so I think for Lazio themselves, they got enough room maybe some Serie A lower teams don't have as much space, but Lazio should be fine with all the testing and giving players room and space. I think anyway, Bruno.
Yeah, definitely. And like you said, a lot of the smaller clubs, the facilities aren't as advanced as the bigger clubs, but at the same time, like you said, I'd find it disgusting if teams are actually hiding positive results just to stay afloat and get their key players on the field. But let's not dwindle on that too much. We do know that this whole pandemic has caused not just financial repercussions to sport, but financial repercussions to everything around the world. And some teams will suffer more than others. And, TV rights, wages, crowd figures, all of that, it plays a massive part. So what do you think or what do you know are the financial repercussions that have impacted Lazio over the last 2-3 months?
I think everyone has been dealt a massive blow with the COVID. I think that with Atalanta, Lazio probably hasn't copped it as hard as what Juventus, Inter have, just because their player wages are a lot less. They did run the club for many years off a salary cap, self-imposed salary cap. They are very good with their finances, and I don't think that it's going to affect them any worse than it would any other teams. I think that Lazio buy smart, they buy young, they try and keep the wages low. Players, as far as I know, have been taking a pay cut. So I guess Lazio's in the same boat as everyone else here, but they don't have these big, massive wage bills. The president's quite comfortable money wise. Yeah, they're very, very smart. They still have the 30-year loan from when he took over, and he's not paying it because it's interest free. So he's very smart with his money, and I think that Lazio would do just as good as everyone else coming out of it financially.
Yeah, and TV rights, everything, but it's not just impacting one team. Like you said, it's impacting everyone. So it's sort of borderline fair, I guess, in that sense. Now, we'd be talking this time of year about transfers and the mercato. Obviously, it's not happening because the season is yet to end and all of that. But it is going to be a very up and down mercato. Now, you saw the sale of Icardi go through recently with PSG taking that buyout, and it was actually less than the initial clause put in the contract, and they put down to terms that, COVID, they put bonuses in and all of that. But how do you see Lazio coming into what is a strange mercato, and who do you think the ins are? Who do you like to see come into the team, or any rumours of players coming in? And who do you think may be leaving?
Well, this was always going to be absolutely crazy, given that Lazio looks set to qualify for Champions League. They've already held off signing players because they never reached their goal, and they believed in the team and they thought that it had potential, which obviously we're seeing now that it does. Lazio have a lot of younger players in the squad that get minimal game time. Vavo's one of them. They bought him, and they're trying to get him into a back three because he's only really played with a back four. And he's sort of a young player coming through. They did say he's going to take a year to come through, so it's almost like a free transfer when someone like that comes through. But I don't think Lazio have the selling power with players to buy other players unless they're selling their big guns. And the Lazio team virtually picks itself, so it's going to be very hard to sell players when you're trying to strengthen your team. I think if there's going to be outs, it's going to be minimal players. It's not going to be any big names. If Milinkovic Savic goes, I did hear Tare say a replacement for Milinkovic-Savic, and he said, I can't even say his name. And that brings me to maybe Prenic with a swap deal with Juventus. And that would be quite interesting if we would be able to get Prenic for Milinkovic plus some money on the side. That would probably be a decent deal just with the money on the side, plus we get a player. But Lazio are in the market for a few players. There's actually a Luis Suarez who's not the Barcelona Luis Suarez, but Igor Tare is always after bargains, just like Inter are now, trying to get free transfers. Mario Götze is available, but I think his $5 million price salary is probably a little bit too high for Lazio. So I don't know who they're going to bring in, but they definitely said that they're going to sell. And I don't believe it's going to be any big name players. They have to buy because the squad depth is just not strong enough for the Champions League. But it's, this break has had so many rumors about transfers, and I don't really believe any of them right now. So I'm not gonna say anything because I mean it's just like Inter with the Vidal deal. That was almost done, but these things just play out in the press and then they never happen. So I'll leave that to Igor Tare, and I've got no idea who's actually coming in. But if we were to get rid of Milinkovic-Savic, I think Pranic would be an awesome alternative.
Yeah, definitely. And yeah, like you said, there's a lot of rumors going around, and Lazio is very well known to buy young players for a very cheap price. And like you always say to me, if they don't perform, it's really cost them nothing. But if they do perform, there's massive benefits in the long run when you do sell them. So they are a great negotiator there. So I'm about to go off topic now, and a lot of people follow their club religiously, and I know, for instance, myself, and I've had the luxury of seeing Inter play at the San Siro, and it was beautiful. Now, earlier this season, you had the luxury of traveling from Sydney, Australia, to Rome to watch a couple of games. Just tell me about the experience. Was it what you were hoping for? More like, how was it?
It was quite funny because all my life I've waited to go. I wanted to go, and when I was there, it kind of felt like I'd been there all my life. It was an amazing experience, but it did feel like I'd been there all my life, with the cover there, and it was a crazy experience to actually do it, and it was very emotional because it was a lifelong thing for me. I had to go see my team play, and I'd recommend it to everybody who hasn't gone to go and see your team play, and it just completes the you as a soccer fan, I guess. But there was nothing more rewarding for me, to go to Italy, to go to Rome, to see my team run out there. It was unbelievable, and yeah, just the noise it generates, singing the songs. It's a memory that will stay there forever.
Yeah, and like you said, it is recommended to go and see your team play. It's one thing watching them on the TV, but it's another thing seeing them there. And you're fortunate enough to go in a season where Lazio are actually up there. They're sitting very, very nicely on the table. They've beaten the top two teams, and they're in a great position where they're 1 point behind Juventus. So brings me to my final question. Where do you see Lazio finishing this year? And do you see this momentum carrying on to next season?
I think it's going to be very, very hard for Lazio just to jump back into winning ways. they started the season poorly, and then they found form in that 3-3 draw against Atalanta. I think it's going to be very, very hard for them to, unless Chiro finds form instantly, then and not only Chiro, the defense, Luis Felipe is very key for our team. So he needs to play good. Acerbi's always playing good. So we just need those combinations to semi-work and for Chiro just to latch onto something and then get the wheels turning, I guess. I do think it's going to be very, very hard just to jump back in. We're on a 21-game undefeated streak. We come back against Atalanta, who would have already played a game because they have the catch-up game first. I think this is probably not ideal for Lazio, but given the circumstances and a lot of people have died, you got to just accept what's actually happening here, But I think Atalanta do have a massive advantage. I just hope that, if we do suffer a loss to Atalanta, that the wheels don't fall off completely. I think that the 5 substitutes are probably going to be okay for Lazio because I'd say, we probably got about 5. We're like Inter, I guess. We're pretty much probably got about 5 players, that we can slot in there, but there's not much extra. Where I think Juventus, they've got players that can really change a game. So right now, I'd be happy if I could lock in top 3. I'd lock in top 3. Obviously, we want to win it, but because of the restart, it's going to be very, very hard. The only thing that I can think of is that Cellini has not played very much football, and very much football with the new rule that you can pass the ball inside the box. I think he's only played like 1 game. So that was crucial at the start of the year. You've seen Inter score some sensational goals from that play where Cellini, under that pressure of being in the box with the ball, that could be the only thing, the only undoing. That's the only sniff, I guess. It's I can see Juventus failing. I think Juventus is going to be very, very strong. I think it's going to be very hard for Lazio to win the league. I think it's going to be impressive if Lazio finish in the top 3, and I'll be happy. I'll be happy with the top 3. If the season didn't stop, I thought the Lazio had a really strong chance of taking it out, given that Juventus and Inter had a lot of games to play with their European commitment. But I guess my minimal goal would be to come 3rd, and my ultimate goal would be to win it. But I'd say somewhere in the middle is probably where we're going to end up, and I'd say we're probably going to end up 2nd.
No worries. Thank you for that. So, to all you Lazio fans out there, you can catch Lazio's first game on Thursday, the 25th of June, 5:45 Sydney time. It's probably Wednesday, the 24th of June, everywhere else in the world. So, I'd like to say thank you to my special guest, Vince.
Thanks for having me, Bruno.
No worries, and we'll definitely be getting you on more often to have a chat, all things culture. And thank you to all our supporters, Forza Inter worldwide, and I guess I've got to say it, Forza Lazio. Ciao.
Ciao.
Hi again, everybody. Today we're talking about Atalanta with our friend Nigel Mannering. Hi Nigel, how are you doing?
I'm very good, Alessandro. Nice to speak to you, mate.
Of course. So for people to follow the podcast and doesn't know you, do you mind introducing yourself a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So my name's Nige. I run the Atalanta News UK Twitter account, which covers all the news and activities on Atalanta. I also write for Atalantini Online, and I've basically been watching Serie A and Atalanta since they started showing it on Channel 4 TV in the UK, Alessandro, which was, about 1993-ish.
Nice. Yeah. So let's talk about the situation at the moment in Serie A. Apparently, we're gonna start the season soon. And how do you think your team has reacted to the stopping of the season? And how do you expect them to return to the league? In which form? For Atalanta was having a very good run. I think they didn't have any injuries, but how is the situation?
Yeah, I mean, well, when the season stopped, that really couldn't have been at a worse time. Off the back of the club's literally the greatest result we probably ever had, with the result in Valencia to get through in the Champions League. Speaking very generally, the squad and the club have coped with things very, very well. Obviously, they've been at the eye of the storm a little bit because of the magnitude of that Valencia game, and obviously the spread of the virus. It really has put Bergamo and Lombardy right at the forefront of the world. Really, it's been a big situation in Italy, and that's been the hotspot. And a lot of the players have just literally been confined to their homes and have been training at home. I know Tim Castan has been working very hard in his garage, for example. He's got a little gym set up there. So speaking very generally, the players have adapted very well, but obviously they've expressed a bit of concern because a lot of players have been speaking very publicly on Instagram and doing a lot of interviews, because really it's the only kind of outlet to speak to anybody at the moment, and it's a great way of keeping in touch with your friends and all that kind of stuff. So they've done a lot of interviews where they've expressed that kind of how surreal it's been and how strange, and how they've only been able to hear the sirens at certain stages, and seeing the list of casualties in the obituary in the local paper. So it's not been an ideal time. But speaking positively, they've dealt with it very, very, very well. We've got back to training this week. Just yesterday, they had their first training game, first competitive match, and that ended in a 5-5 draw. So that kind of tells me that not a huge amount has changed. Everything's pretty positive, and hopefully, as and when the football comes back around, we'll be ready to go.
Okay, and any player was injured before and now has recovered? How is the situation for under that point of view?
Yeah, so I think we had Toloi was the major sort of casualty at the tail end of the season, just as we were wrapping up before coronavirus kind of kicked in. He's fit and healthy. He was training the other day. Martin Darun has a slight muscle injury, so he actually missed the 5-5 competitive draw, but in sort of pre-season, or not pre-season, in training yesterday. So he's really the only person that's a bit of a knock. But other than that, everyone's fit and healthy and good to go.
Okay. Do you think, after what you said, also from the reaction of the players and the whole situation there, do you think this season should restart or no?
My personal opinion is probably no. We've gone for a long period of time, and whatever happens, there's always potentially going to be that asterisk placed against the season. I'd rather start afresh in August. Is my personal opinion. I'd love us to continue the Champions League. I'd love us to maybe get that done in August, which is potentially looking maybe likely. That's the sort of UEFA plan at the moment. As for Serie A, I'll be honest with you, I wrote that off a number of weeks ago. I think once this has gone beyond 3-4 weeks, you're always looking at a very, very difficult scenario to restart the season. It's very positive that everyone's been back training. It might well happen. I could be completely wrong, but if you want my honest gut reaction, is I don't think we'll see anything until potentially the start of the 2020-21 Serie A season.
Yeah, I'm with you. I already forgot most of the previous season, so yeah. After this break, any of the players were tested positive, re-entering, and what do you think the situation with testing will play out now that the season will resume? And also, how are the things with the training grounds and space there in Bergamo?
Okay, so with regards to the players and all the staff, we had one positive test amongst all the club staff, and that was actually Marco Sportiello, the sort of backup keeper. He actually had. He tested positive. I can't remember the exact date, but in the full duration that he was infected was about 6-7 weeks in total. So he was infected for a long time, but he was our only case. From the moment the lockdown happened, I know the players were undergoing 2 tests a day, and everyone was wearing the sort of face masks, and basically full protocol, full lockdown procedure was in effect at the Zingonia training complex from day one. I know when they've gone back to training as well at the moment, all of that lockdown procedure is still in place. For example, yesterday at training, you had Mr. Bacassi as well as 2 of the other kind of senior management at the club were there, and they were a good 15-20 metres apart just watching the game. And it's only those that are offering verbal instructions on the training ground that aren't wearing face masks. So everyone else is. So around the club, absolutely sensational kind of protocol. As I say, we've been right at the eye of the storm with this thing, so they had to make sure they got it right, and they followed that to the letter. As for when the league restarts and the actual the mechanics of testing the players, so we're in a situation where we know everyone's fit and healthy and we can actually play. I'll be honest. I mean, that's maybe for people with a little bit more education, a little bit more knowledge on this than me to kind of throw a suggestion out there. Really, I mean, it's such a difficult one. I mean, you can test every player in the league, but you've got to be doing that all of the time on a consistent basis, because it only takes one infected player that's maybe not tested for 2-3 weeks, and then you've got a bit of a problem developing. So yeah, I'll leave that for people more educated than me, if that's okay.
No, yeah, absolutely. So we know Atalanta in the recent year was in a up and up, especially with all the player you guys develop and you discover around Europe. But at the same time, this top it must be pretty hard financially. So what do you think is the impact on your team? And do you think the PGC, the Italian Federation, should assist more the clubs to stay afloat?
Yeah, so across the club, there hasn't really been any kind of comment on the financials at all. I've had no kind of sources coming out telling me anything. I've not read anything. The only little insight we've had to any kind of financials was an interview with Ruslan Malinovsky. This was maybe a week or 2 into the lockdown. And it was actually on the YouTube channel or the Instagram channel of the Ukrainian Football Federation. And he was just saying that they're yet to sort out the bonuses for the progress in the Champions League off the back of that Valencia game. And that's really the only kind of insight we've had to any of the financial ongoings and the financial impact at Atalanta. For the rest of the clubs, I mean, definitely, there's definitely going to be some clubs in big trouble off the back of this. You can tell by my accent, obviously, I come from England. We have the Football League structure here. We have the Football League pyramid. We have 92 teams within that Football League pyramid. We have the non-league pyramid below that. And I can tell you we'll probably lose a lot of clubs here unless they get a lot of help. So, yeah, definitely we need to see some cash for some of those clubs that are going to need it. And I think there's more than enough resources amongst some of these big TV broadcasting companies to actually chip in the pot and become the good guys for a change, rather than just milking the system, which I think is probably how most people would see the big broadcasting companies. So there's some people with some cash that could do some really good stuff for some very small football clubs and be of a big help.
Yep, very well said. And also, I forgot to mention, this year you got a pretty big chunk of revenue coming from the Champions League, and probably that wasn't so expected from the president, from the team itself. So probably that will make up the losses. So I don't know. At the end of the season, probably you guys are gonna balance it out. But I don't know the financial situation of your club. So
Yeah.
I just
we're in a great place financially. I mean, we've been really well run for a decade since Mr. Percassi came in as president, and yeah, as you say, we've done really well financially this year. Don't forget we've got the player sales in there as well. Old Dejan Kulusevski's gone to Juve for 35 odd million euro or something like that. I think it was. So yeah, there's a lot of money floating around. So we're in a good place. We're a lot better off than a lot of other clubs at this stage.
Yeah. And speaking of transfer, how do you predict this transfer window, the summer one will go for you guys?
Well, I want to be really positive because it's such a difficult thing to talk about the sort of virus and the effects of that. All of us enjoy covering football, so it's been a bit of a weird one talking about this virus and stuff. So I want to be positive on the transfer news, but the first thing is probably the most depressing thing I could say, and that's Tim Castan. He looks really likely to leave, and I loved him. He's one of the most underrated players we've got. He's an absolute Trojan. He works so hard up and down whatever sort of the pitch he's put on. I loved him. He probably looks like he'll go to England. He gave an interview the other day where he stated he wants to play in the Premier League. He said that around 12 months ago as well. And he said that he didn't have a preferred club, and just his use of the term preferred club, even though there's been a lot of speculation about him going, just his use of that preferred club tells me that he's potentially looking elsewhere. So that'll be a huge shame, but he's been a great servant, and we loved him at Atalanta. So if he wants to go and do something else to try and get a few more minutes, then yeah, fair enough. The only other kind of points of interest is we're always looking for that backup to Ilicic. We've been trying to do that for a while. We looked at the lad from Cagliari, João Pedro, in the summer. One really interesting prospect is the lad from Club Bruges. We've actually offered a 4-year contract to this guy, apparently, and that's Charles de Catalaire. If you've got any Belgium listeners, they're welcome to absolutely tear me apart on the pronunciation of this guy, because I literally know nothing. It's been a long time since I watched any kind of Belgian football. But apparently he's a really, really exciting prospect. I think he's only about 18, 19. But by all accounts, the feedback that's come back to me from the Society of Twitter is that he's a very technical player and a really exciting prospect. And we've definitely offered a 4-year contract to him, and the ball's in his court. So that could be one.
What's the name again?
Charles de Catalaire.
Okay.
I can remember the nicknames we came up for him. We were looking at calling him Prince Charles just because he's got the Charles in there, and I feel like he sounds royal, and we can't go over King because we've already got the King of Slovenia and Josip Ilicic. So, yeah.
And after this amazing Champions League run, do you think any other player will be tempted to go to, I don't want to say a bigger club, but some other adventure?
Well, you never say never in football, but I think the squad's. I've never seen a squad that's as together as ours. Everyone seems to get on very well. The quality of the football kind of shows in the harmony of the squad. It would be very, very difficult to see someone like Josip Ilicic go. I don't think Papu will go ever. I think he'll probably see out his career at Atalanta. I can't see Martin Darun going. I can't really see Hans Hatterbull going anytime soon. I can't see Remo Freuler going anytime soon. Maybe if someone came in with stupid money for Duvan Zapata, you could maybe see that happening. But other than that, I don't really see anyone wanting to go anywhere. Not for the next 12 months at least.
Okay, we can make something with Gosens if you like, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, actually, yeah. To be fair, actually, I've dodged a big bullet in the shape of Gosens, because if someone is going to go, he's probably the guy. He's probably I mean, obviously Tim Castan, we know will go, but yeah, Gosens is the one. I mean, he could go to Chelsea, he could go to Inter. I think he's probably more likely to stick it out with us for another 12 months and see what Schalke are doing. He wants to go to the Bundesliga, and he always keeps saying he wants to pay for Schalke. It just depends on his level of ambition, if that makes sense. If he wants to be the best player in the world, he'll go to an Inter or he'll go to a Chelsea. He'll take that huge pay packet and he'll go for it, But if he wants to just go and be the man and play for his boyhood club, then he'll go to Schalke.
Mm-hmm. I have 2 more questions for you. What do you think will Gasperini do?
Gasperini, I don't think he's got any desire to go anywhere anytime soon, especially not while there's some finance behind him and we're playing the quality of the football that we've got, and particularly while the Primavera squad's as good as it is. We've probably got another couple of generations of young players coming through that academy. So he loves it in Bergamo. He said it's the perfect platform for his kind of philosophy for football, and it's a place that's in a great place right now in from a football perspective. So yeah, I don't see that changing, and he's had his little dig at it with you guys at Inter, and he kind of got his fingers burned a little bit. So whether he'd be brave enough to take that again,
he mentioned it in every occasion he has. So yep. Last question. What do you think if this whole season will restart and the Champions League will end? What do you think is a good prediction for your team, both in Serie A and in Champions League?
Well, Serie A, I think it would take something pretty colossal for us not to finish fourth. So I'm resigned to the fact we'll finish fourth, and I think that reflects a tremendous performance, considering we've had the Champions League. But yeah, obviously, it'll still have an asterisk by because we've had like a massive break in the middle of the season because of this horrible virus. But yeah, fourth place, and that's a good result at the end of the season. Champions League is such a strange one because we've already fulfilled the expectations. It's just how far can the spirit and the quality of the squad take us? And who do we get in the next round? We'll still have to, we still don't know the draw. I mean, we still could be playing absolutely anybody. So yeah, we'll see on the draw. I'd love to see us go to a final. That would be just amazing. And if you want a weird little notion for you, I'm sure you remember Hurricane Katrina. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure you remember you may or not like your American football, but the New Orleans Saints won the Super Bowl after Hurricane Katrina. And I just wonder, I'm not saying it's going to happen, but I just wonder if there's something written in the stars a little bit later in the year for Atalanta along those kind of lines.
Well, I have to say, I really hope so. It would be amazing for all Serie A, and also, as you said, it would be something for the whole city of Bergamo.
We do Juve in the final for you.
Say again?
It will beat Juve in the final for you.
Oh, absolutely! Anytime you want to beat Juve, that's always a good day. If it's the final, I think they're. Well, I'm gonna say some. Let's just leave it there. I don't want to be too mean, but yeah. Anyway, Nigel, it was a real pleasure. And I'm going to pick your brain pretty soon for all the Atalanta prospects you were mentioning. And thanks again.
No problem. No, thank you very much for having me, mate.
If you want to plug in something more, you were mentioning your podcast. What's the name?
Yeah, we got the Atalanta pod, which I do with Dan, who you can find at Atalanta_Vegas on Twitter. So yeah, we'll probably have an episode of that up in the next sort of few weeks. We can be a bit hit and miss when it comes around, but when we get together, it's normally good fun. And we've got Glenn Strongberg introducing the podcast as well, which is pretty cool.
Awesome. Okay, Nigel, thank you again.
No worries. Thank you very much, mate.